Training room peeps do.
All right, can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. So if you just got here, welcome. I'm Vanessa. I'll be teaching you how to paint this awesome cow today. And I love the surprise look this cow has. So I think that's super important element. You can add eyelashes too later on if you want your cow to be glam. And I'll show you how to do that later. All right, so if you haven't gotten your paint ready, definitely get into that right now. Here's my palette. I'm just using a paper plate. I've got a medium and large brush here. These are our two primary brushes. I may use a small detail brush, but we won't need that until the end when we start doing the nostrils and maybe some of the grasses coming out of the cow's mouth. And then you want your jar, or your water jar or water cup, whatever you have available to you. Definitely have some water and cover your workspace. And let's get started. So if you wouldn't mind, unless there are any questions right now, please ask. Otherwise, go ahead and mute your sound. So there should be a little microphone down at the left of your Zoom, and you just want to hit mute on that. Excellent. All right. Okay, great. So thank you again for joining us. Super excited to have your work group together online, and I feel like at this point in history, we are all pros at doing everything on the internet instead of in person. So thank you guys for joining us in this manner. All right, so let's get started. First thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a background. Acrylic paint is a really wonderful kind of paint because it dries quickly and it's really forgiving. So you can paint over it once it dries. So I'm going to start with the background, and if you look closely at the example, you've got a lot of orange and yellow and reds in there, and they're not over mixed. So if you look at it closely, you can really see a lot of variation. So I'm going to teach you guys how we can do that. All right, so I'm going to start off with my big brush, and I am going to mix some of those orange tones here. So I've got yellow and red, and a good way to do this is I can just pick up a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. One corner of red, one corner of yellow. I like to paint this way. Sometimes you can blend directly on your canvas instead of blending it on your palette first. So once I've got that, now I'm gonna start on my left and right corner here. I'm gonna put this right here, and you can sort of see it there. And then I'm just gonna start up here at the top, and I'm just going to add some variations of yellow, red. If I've got too much red, something you can do here, you don't have to wet your brush, you can sometimes just wipe it off. So right here, for example, instead of wetting my brush, I'm just wiping that paint off, and then I'll pick up more yellow, and that's gonna lighten up the background. So be careful that you don't over mix. If I sit here and I just keep going back and forth with my brush like this, I'm going to end up over mixing, and then I'll just end up with one orange instead of all these really beautiful variations. I'm just gonna scooch my computer up a little bit closer here so you could see it a little bit better. All right, and I'm gonna do the same thing over on the right, but this time I might use just yellow because there's still gonna be a little red in there. Just a little red still left in my brush, so that's just gonna keep this side nice and light. All right, so I wanna go ahead and paint the entire top third. So if you imagine your canvas is in 3 pieces, it's 1, 2, 3. So go ahead and paint the entire top of this canvas here. And then if you get too dark, we can definitely lighten it back up, but it's much easier to darken something than it is to lighten something. So just be aware of that. Also, you want to paint your edges. So let me just show you here on my stretched canvas. I've got the sides and the top. Okay, so continue your paint on the sides once you get it on the surface. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to give you just a couple minutes, and I will check back with you in just a moment. All right, excellent. Looks good, everybody that I can see. Good job, Becky. Kaylee, beautiful. Caitlin, nice. I love the dark from dark to light. And Anne, all right, excellent. You have your own style there. I like it. You'll start to really see your style of painting, like your signature or your fingerprint. It's unique to you. So don't ever feel like you have to duplicate. Nice, Lindsay. Thumbs up for that. Cheers. You don't have to paint exactly the way I do. You'll find your own method and what feels right. So do that. That's when you're your authentic self. So continue doing that. One thing I will say, you want to be careful not to add so much paint that it's real thick and it's going to take a long time to dry. So, you know, if you're applying paint as thick as it looks on your palette, that's way too thick, right? So you want to make sure it's a nice thin coat so it can dry in about 10 or 15 minutes. Otherwise, it can take hours for it to dry. So be mindful of that. Also, water is another great tool in acrylic painting. We're not using it yet, but you can thin down your paint with a little bit of water. And sometimes that's a good thing, depending on the look that you want in blending. Okay. All right, so just gonna hold this up here. What I'd like to do is I want to start adding in the shape of our cow, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large brush that I was just using, I'm going to put it in the water. One important thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that your brush, when you're not using it and it has paint on it, you want to keep it in the water so that it doesn't dry out. All right. Then I'm going to grab my medium brush, which is this one here. It's a 1/2 inch square if you've got that. This is how we're going to create our outline for our cow. Okay, so this cow is our main focal point, right? So you notice that the ears come right off, like the ears aren't showing in their entirety, they're cut off. And then, you know, you've got, imagine this as a little triangle here, and a little bit of a triangle here. So see how much space this cow is taking up? That's what I want you to think about. Also, if this is our canvas, you would think, okay, this cow's nose comes down to about 2/3 of the way down, okay? So he's really taking up quite a bit of space, or she. Mine's a she. So I'm gonna, mine's a she too, yeah. So I'm just gonna take my brush here and I'm going to start outlining my cow, okay? So I'm going to use a little bit of light blue because that's sort of the majority of what the cow is. She's all blues, and I'm going to use a lighter blue because if I make a mistake, lighter is better than trying to cover up dark. So I'm going to make a light blue on my palette. I'm going to take a little blue, maybe push it somewhere where there's a nice clean area on my canvas, and then I'm going to, or my palette. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of white in there until you get like a robin's egg blue or a sky blue. You don't need a lot of this, so, you know, just a tiny bit. This is just for you to draw your outline with. All right. So first I'm kind of filling in this negative space. I'm going to just take my brush here and I'm just going to create the head and then the ears will pop out. So head, it's going to be about right here. And then, and don't worry if it blends in with your background, if your background's not dry yet, this is all going to get covered up. All right, so the head's pretty big.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I spilled paint, but I have a quick question. Was it do you take the white and then put just a little bit of blue on it?
Yeah, so what I did, yeah, exactly. I took a little dot of blue and then I would say like 75% white and a little tiny dot of blue. And what I'm doing here, this is where that ear is gonna go. And then on this side, it's kind of the same thing where that ear is gonna come right out here like this. So this is kind of the shape you wanna start with. And don't get too caught up in what color this is. We're going to paint over it with all these different shades of blue and white. Okay, this is just to kind of give you a guide. Does that make sense? The color itself is not what's important, it's just the line work. All right, so there's my ear. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit more paint here and I'm going to create the cow's face. And again, remember, see how the muzzle comes all the way down almost to the bottom of the canvas? So I'm just going to mark where that is going to land. So about here. Don't worry about this ear over here. This is all going to get filled in, but there's where my face is, right there. Okay? Does anybody have questions? If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. All right, excellent. I'm gonna give you guys a minute or two to get your face outline. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it because again, we can cover it up, okay? And look how loose I painted. It's very loose. I'm not being fussy. This painting itself, it's like the artist had already had a few glasses of wine. It's very loose. It's a very fun style. That's one of the reasons we're not using a tiny brush because a tiny brush is going to restrict you from being free. A small brush means detail and concentration, and this is more big brush strokes and feeling, okay? So channel that and just have fun with it because this is a really silly, fun painting. If you look at it and when someone sees it in your house, they're gonna go, oh my gosh, that is so cute and silly, I love it. So let your brush work really reflect that. All right, just a couple minutes and then we'll move on. All right, excellent. Yeah, so when I mute myself, you guys can talk and you know, chat if you've got questions or you want to say hi to each other. That's really cool. All right, so I'm going to move on to a different area here. So here, you'll see that we have a nice little patch of green. Okay, so let me just point this out here. So here's where that pasture is, right about, I would say this is almost a halfway point. So if you're looking at your canvas, the green is from here down. So look at your canvas, kind of figure out where that halfway point is. You might say, okay, it's about right here. And I haven't cleaned my brush yet, and I'm just making a little line right there with my blue. Doesn't matter, I'm gonna cover that up, but that is where that pasture line is, okay? So from there down, it's gonna be all these really lovely shades of green. Okay, and then you don't want to paint over your cow. You're going to paint this block right here. So I'm just gonna show you here. I'm just gonna use my light blue. And my cow, this is where the neck is. So imagine there's your cow. Her neck is about right here and down. Okay, so this is my cow's nose. And then her neck and her shoulder blade is right here. So I'm just making a block here and a block here. It's gonna make sense soon, I promise. We're just gonna get the background laid out so that once we start with the main focal point, our cow, we don't have to fuss with the background. It'll be filled in. So let's go ahead and paint. Let's paint this little block of green. So I'm just gonna use, I like my medium brush, so I'm gonna stick with it. And I'm going to make green. So hopefully you remember how to make green in elementary school, right? Yellow and blue, excellent. So you wanna add a little yellow, a little bit of blue, you'll get some green. And then I like to add, depending on how dark or light, you can add a little white to it. That's gonna make a nice light green. So start with that. And I'm going to add a few drops of water. So go ahead and try that. Add some water to your green so that it, number one, it makes more paint and it'll keep it from getting gummy or thick and sticky. So make sure that you add just a few drops of water. And then I'm going to just lay this base color down. And our painting does not have sharp, hard lines. I mean, if you're a very particular person and you want those very clean lines, go for it. That's your style, just do it. But if you want to keep that loose feeling of this painting, you really just want it to be very undefined with the lines and really loose brush strokes. So when I'm painting something very detailed, I'll hold my brush like this, really close to the base. And when I want to be more loose and fun, I will go further back, because then you're going to have less control and you're really going to see more action in your brush strokes. Okay, so try that. If you're having a hard time getting loose, just add a little bit more length between you and the brush and you'll see a huge difference. So again, yellow, blue, a little bit of white. And you can do different variations of those, like more blue, more yellow. You'll see you'll have different greens. And we will build on this, so we will have way more than just one shade of green here. But definitely add water to your paint.
Are we doing the edges yet, or just we don't? Not yet.
Good question. So if you want to do the edge of the green, yes, go ahead and do that. So it will just be this edge here, and then up to where your cow's shoulder is. Okay, so here and here. But the bottom is the most important to paint, because when you hang up a canvas, you're likely not going to see that top edge, but you will see that. So definitely do that edge. Great question. All right, so I just want to show you mine up close. So you can see, if I hold it real close, you could see that some variations starting to happen. I like it. You really want some of that. So I'm going to show you how we're going to start building more colors of green here. So if you look closely at the original, there's some very dark olive greens in here. And the way we create olive green with primary colors is you will add, so same thing, it's a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, and then a tiny bit of red. Okay, so start off with the smallest amount of red, just in case it gets icky looking, you can fix it. And I'm just adding a little bit more blue to this because I want to darken it up. So more blue, some yellow, and then a little red. Not so much white. Trying to go dark here. So obviously you're going to get dark colors if you avoid white. So I'm trying to do that here. And I've got a nice avocado guacamole. This is like the color of guacamole when you leave it out on your countertop. Starts to turn that weird green. That's kind of what we want. So I'm going to just add in, and this is how I like to blend here. So see, I've just gone and made a few little dashes in there, right? And then what I'll do is I'll take my brush, wipe off all that excess paint on my paper towel, and then I can just sort of blend in those shapes so that it blends into the other green. So you want to do this quickly so that your paint doesn't dry. You want that paint to blend with the color behind it. And so time is a factor. You got to sort of get in there quickly to get it to blend. You don't want either one of those colors to dry before you do this. You won't be able to blend them. So, and I'm just making random squiggly brush strokes here. It's almost like I'm writing in cursive. And that's actually a fun way to do this too. Some people are like, well, I just, I'm writing the letter A over and over, or I'm doing the cursive letter C and E. That'll get you there. We're starting to get some good texture here. And then just be careful you don't go over into your cowl. You're gonna stay in that area. All right, have some fun with some weird greens. All right, let's move on, guys. So we're gonna
back to our avocado.
Back to work. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna let this dry for just a couple minutes so that we can get some more green in there. But so see that little area right under the cow's ear? Make sure that you can see. So this little square right here, we want to fill this in because that is sky, right? So see the little patch. So you want something similar to what you've got going on in your other two corners, just almost like a continuation of that. And hopefully that green is dry here. So because we're switching now from green to orange, you really want to clean your brush well. You don't want any leftover paint in there.
I must put mine in my Pinot Grigio.
Oh, don't put your brush in your Pinot Grigio. It won't make you paint better if you drink paint. So I'm just going to clean off my brush there and clean off my excess water with a paper towel. And since you guys are at home, if you need clean, fresh water, feel free to get up, stretch your legs. You don't have to excuse yourself. Just go do what you got to do. Sometimes I like to give my brushes a rinse in the middle of a paint session. So if you want to do that, you can do that. All right, so now I've got my nice clean brush and I'm going to fill in this little square. And I'm going to hold my canvas up because I want you to see this. It's very important that you don't make any straight lines here. You want it to be really loose and just building right at that dividing line, okay? So I'm not going to cut it off really straight. There's no straight lines on this painting. So you want it to sort of organically blend right over, okay? So some of that green might show through underneath. Here's a little trick you can do. You can take just a dot of white. So you have a little white on my brush, and then I can just go right over it. You'll love using a little bit of white as a primer. That really helps you to get colors on there really vividly and really rich. So just a little tiny dot of white, and then just fill in that little square to include the edge. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll give you guys just a couple minutes to do that. All right, hey guys. All right, excellent. So don't worry if you've got like some bold patches of red or orange or anything. You can always go back in later. So we've got, this area should be dry. So what I want to do is add a little bit more dark green. So this very dark green, we're going to add that. So I'm going to clean off my brush and I'm going to just take this green that I was using and I'm going to add, let's just see here. All right. Okay, I'm going to add a tiny dot of black and a little bit more blue so I can get a darker green here. So see that? That's a little black, a little blue, a little bit of yellow. I mean, we've pretty much got all the colors here, but we're gonna use way less white because we want it to be dark. And then with this, more blue. With this, I'm just going to make kind of some messy brush strokes here, and then let it fade out. So very dark, very bold, and then as my paint starts to run out, I just let it fizzle away so that it'll look dark, and then it'll get gradually lighter. And I've used up all my paint. And see, it's kind of just making random shapes, far away brush posture here. And then again, if you want to just make the edges match somewhat, I think that's important. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the side there, and I'm going to stop. I don't want to overdo it. It's very easy to just, you have so much fun, you're just like, I'm just going to keep going, but you want to kind of stop yourself a little bit so you don't overdo it. So I'm going to stop right there. I like that dark green. I like all these random patches in there, and then I let it fade out. All right, have fun with it. If you make a mistake, don't worry. You can always mix some lighter paint, green, and then touch it up later, okay?
Help me.
All right, so guys, we're gonna start working on the details of the cow here, okay? So we're gonna let this background dry, and we're gonna go ahead and clean off our medium brush. All right. And I'm gonna put my example here. And we're going to mix the first shade of blue for our cow, okay? So this, it's like a medium tone. It's almost like a denim blue, and we're gonna paint this whole area with it. So actually, if you want to do it quickly, you can use your large brush. So, and it's good to clean that brush off anyway. So I'm gonna switch gears here, and I'm just going to use my large brush so I can get that area covered quickly. So here's my large brush. The last time I used it, it had yellow on it. So I'm just trying to make sure I get most of that yellow off. And I'm gonna mix that nice medium blue. And you can also do this. This will make it happen faster too. You can take a little bit of blue, just throw it on your canvas, a little bit of white, throw it on your canvas, and then you blend directly on your canvas. Nice little trick there. And so how much are you gonna paint here? Let's just paint this whole section here. We're just gonna visually section this off here. And if you wanna add a little water, I'm just gonna wet my brush just a touch. There we go. And go ahead and fill that in. So this is not a super straight line, but it is a little bit more defined. We do want to give our cowl somewhat of a sharper definition than the background has. So there's a little bit of a curve here so that we know that that's all the cow's fur. And then I'll just fill it in, go up around the ear, and then all the way down the side of the canvas. So paint that edge as well, and bottom if you'd like. So this will take you a couple minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit mute, and you guys paint away. All right, so here we go. What we're gonna do next is we are going to define this little white strip on the cow's head. All right, so imagine that it's almost like an hourglass shape here. So it's tall, and then it comes in really narrowly.
Guys,
Here, let's wait until I'm done with this instruction, and then we'll do that after. Hold on. Just keep it real tiny. Sorry guys, my daughter's in the background getting ice cream, and I hope that you don't hear too much rustling back there. Is that okay?
We are so fine with that.
Okay. It's like,
you're fine.
okay, good. Thank you.
My dog is also making many a sound.
Yes, it's dessert time at Vanessa's house. So if you want some ice cream, come on over. We'll share with you. All right. So we're going to create that little curve inside the cow's main space here, this main area. But what I don't want to do is be clumsy with my big brush. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to use my, this brush here. This is a medium. And I'm going to kind of mix that same color. So that light blue, just going to get kind of close. It doesn't have to be the exact match. If you have some left over, great. And so imagine your cow's eyes are, let's split it up in half. Okay, so here's the cow, that's the center of the face. Okay, I'm gonna come up a little bit closer here. So there's the center. All right, and then the eyes will be about here. I'm just gonna do a tiny, tiny, tiny dot where the eyes are gonna be. So the eyes will be right by the ears and very even to the center of the ears. So a dot here, a tiny dot there. Don't make a big, thick, dark dot, just a little one, just enough for you to see, okay? Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna create that hourglass shape here with this. And you wanna go in really light, and it kind of comes down right about here and here, something like that. See, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just going to define what's going to be white coming down the center here. All right. This is going to be the nose. So just try to get a nice little line going there and a line going there. Real quick, guys, what we're going to do, once you get those lines on there, don't worry, they don't have to be perfectly even. We're going to build the front of the cow's face very step by step. This is just to keep us semi on point, okay? So I'm going to clean off my brush, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, so see this big yellow area? I want to cover that up because we're going to paint that white, and it's not going to get covered up in one layer. We're going to have to add a couple of layers. So I'm going to take my medium brush, and then I'm just going to fill this whole area in with white. So go ahead and do that. Just cover up any yellow that's showing with a thin layer of white.
Vanessa, do we leave the outline of the head?
Good question. So let's take a look at this. That's a great question. So if you look at the original, that white really does cover up that outline. So we can go ahead and do that. And then look, he has like a little tiny patch of hair on top. We can add that in later, but if you want to, just kind of block that off. You could do that, but that is a good point. We really do want to cover up this side and this side of our outlines with white. It's not going to cover it up the first coat. It's going to take a couple, so don't stress out. It's just priming it. And I'm just going to top it off there and cover up what I can. Thin coat so it dries quickly. All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good job. How does everybody feel? Did you get a nice coat of white on there and at least get that covered up, at least a good start? Good. Excellent. All right. Excuse me. So I'm just going to place this here while I'm not holding it up for you guys. So and if you need me to hold it up more often, let me know. But I definitely want to show it to you up close every now and then. Okay, so next step is I'm going to start painting this left side of the cowl. So what I feel when I look at this, the light is coming in from this angle. The shadows are coming in at this angle. Do you see it? If it didn't make sense before, now you're seeing where the light source is, where the dark is. So this is really important because even though this cow is crazy eyes and it's really loose brush strokes, the light still follows the same rules as real life. We want a light source, we want a shadow source. So keep that in mind. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a dark blue. So I'm gonna clean off my brush because it's got white on it. And I'm gonna use my medium brush still because I wanna have some control. Sometimes that big brush gets a little bit difficult to control. So I'm gonna mix blue and a little bit of black. Okay, be careful you don't go too dark with the black because, you know, it'll really. My daughter's jamming and the Bluetooth just kicked on. All right, there's just never a dull moment here. Cats, kids, cows, all of it. All right. So I've got a nice denim, dark denim blue with that black. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill it in. Oh, wait, before you go hard here, let's just define that eye. All right, so I've circled where that dot is, and that's where my cow's eye is gonna go. All right, so I've just gone around in a circle because I'm gonna fill that in with white. All right, so now I've got his eye defined. Now I can go ahead and fill in the rest of it with this dark blue to include his whole ear, cover up any outline. So remember our light blue outline we started the class with? Cover that up now with this dark blue. Okay, real quick here, let me show you what I did. So if you went all the way down the muzzle, that's okay. But if you haven't quite gotten here yet, you could cut it off because this area here is going to be pink. So if you want to make a little line there, and that's just kind of going to stop your brush from going down too far. If you painted this whole segment dark blue, don't worry about it. What you can do once you get to this point, you'll just use a little bit of white and cover it up just like we did up here. Like everything could get covered up with white. It might take a couple coats, but you should be fine. And what it is anyway, it's just like splotchy grays. See where that blue is? But you could see where that little cutoff is right there. All right, just a little visual. Stop yourself if you can and just define that and paint upward. Okay, so how far up should you go? So I'm probably going to make my cow's eyes bigger. But a small circle is a good way to start. And then make sure that you get some blue above, like an eyebrow height of some blue above, okay? And then here, you really can start to define that shape a little bit more here. And then we'll go over it with some white. But I'm liking it so far. I hope you guys are liking your masterpieces as you progress.
My eye is not as white as I want.
So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to start defining this part of the ear on the right side. So we define it with some shadows. Okay, so right here it's a shadow of the ear, and then there's a little bit there, a little bit of shadows happening here down in the cow's shoulder area. So we're not drawing out these areas, we're just using shadow to define them. So with that same dark blue, and this is also a really great way to repeat colors in a painting. Your eye really wants to see repetition in real life, routine, and things that can be sort of predictable. We like that as humans, and we like it in art. Like we want to see this dark blue somewhere else in our painting. So we're going to do that by just defining that ear. So I'm going to pick up more of that same dark blue. And the eye is here, okay, right? So we've got our dot here and our dot right here. And so the ear, just imagine like this, like the ear is gonna go straight across here. So sometimes I'll do this where I'll use my brush. So see, I want that ear to start right here. So I'm just going to make a little bit of a brush stroke here. And then I want it to be kind of loose. So I'm just going to, first you can do a line if that helps you, and then you want to soften it up a little. And it's just a shadow, So I'm just going to pull downward. If an ear was in the sun, it would make a shadow in the same sort of shape and distance of whatever it's a shadow of. That makes sense. Sorry, I rambled there, but that's about what you want. It's almost like a triangle. And then you want to just take your brush and we're just going to make some nice dramatic brush strokes. One right here. Here's an important part too. There's a little bit of a cheek happening here. So I'm just going to make like a curved line here and then maybe pull down some. Now, I promise you, everybody's gonna know it's a cow. No matter how you make your shadows, it's going to look fine. Okay, but we just want that contrast happening. So that's why we're doing this. And then I might just add one thick, bold line about right there. Add a little water. I can feel the paint getting dry as I apply it because it pulls. It resists a little bit. So I'm just adding a touch of water to this. And that's gonna really help that paint move freely. Okay, so I'm gonna hold up my painting while you guys are doing this so that you can see how random and, you know, really undefined some of these lines are. So now that we've gotten that dark color on there, now we're gonna lighten it up just a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a little white to that dark mixture that we just made. All right, so now we're gonna start getting into some lighter blues. So it's still black and blue, but I'm adding a white to it so that it can have some more depth here. So I'm just gonna add a little more blue in there. And now what I'm gonna do, this is really fun. I love painting this way. I wanna go ahead and define the other eye. So there's my cow's other eye, okay? Then what I can do is I can start filling in this little area here with this new shade of blue. And then again, here's your muzzle. So imagine right there's the muzzle, so I could stop about right here. And then what I want you to start getting comfortable with is just picking up more colors that are in the same family and adding more blues to this. So what do I mean by that? So I've got my blue that I made. Now maybe what I'm gonna do is pick up a tiny dot of white, okay? And then I'm just going to start introducing some lightness. So see how dramatic that is? I didn't clean my brush. I just picked up a little tiny bit of white and then I just went right over that wet paint, and now I have some really nice contrast and some really beautiful highlights happening there. So I'll try that again. Find a wet spot of paint that you just applied, and then just pick up a little bit of white and scribble that in. And then when it starts to get too light, pick up a little blue while it's wet, and then you can get those blended directly on the canvas here. All right. And then if you, and I know you are all pet lovers and animal lovers, imagine a furry animal's ear, right? So you've got like that fur, it's like a little cave of, you know, their ear shape, it's a cone, and that fur is kind of moving in one direction, and then it's moving in another direction down here. But you can really make it feel like it's furry by sort of following what the fur would do, okay? Think about that as you paint, as you pick up different tones of blue, and then start looking at your original, whether it's on your phone or next to you, or as a screenshot, and you want to just start adding in all these different values of blue on the cheek, around the eye. You can even start working on this little tuft of hair up the top, and then maybe down here in the neck area. So go ahead and start doing that. What you don't want is just 2 shades of blue. You want lots and lots of variation in this. Okay, so I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna continue working. All right, cool. So I've just been adding some streaks of different shades of blue. So see how many I've got just in this little corner? That's kind of what you wanna do, okay? And you can just pick up tiny, tiny dots of blue and white, and then just start building all those cool little layers of blue on top, something like that, okay? And then even like by your shadow, you can always add a little bit of contrast around your shadow, a little bit of a different blue there. But see, I'm following that fur. I really want this ear and cowl to look kind of furry. So I just follow that line. See how light I got with that white on there? I kind of like it. So I'm just gonna go with a light blue on this ear. And then the ear comes around like that. Don't worry if your eyes look small. We're gonna make those eyes real big here in just a bit. All right. Let's move on. We're gonna start painting the this huge white area on the cowl. So I'm gonna clean off my medium brush. Hopefully you have some white and paper towels here. And I'm just gonna grab fresh white. This would be a good time if your paint is looking real, your water's looking real muddy. Dump it out in the sink and get yourself some fresh paint. You can also give your brushes a quick rinse. So I'm gonna give you guys a moment to do that. But here's what you'll do when you come back. You're just gonna give your cowl another layer of white right in the center of his face. And this is important here too. You wanna make sure that you cover up any lines that are out here in the top of his head. All right, and another thing I want you to do, if your eyes are small, go ahead and take that white, that blue's dry, go ahead and make that eye bigger. So I'm just going in a circle like this, and I'm making my eyes nice and big. I'll do that on this side too. Nice and big. Okay, it's coming along. Go ahead and fill that in. Even this area in the center where it's already white, give it a coat of white anyway. Next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on the muzzle. So let's take a close look at this. I'm gonna hold it up. All right, so you'll see that we've got two nostrils here, a nice little pink nose, and then a little bit of a darker pink in the middle, and then almost like a butterfly sort of shape here around, like, and up close it looks crazy. You would not know that is a cow muzzle, but as you move it further back, it makes more sense. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about, looking at something up close, and this is just a crazy shape, and then it really makes sense when you hold it back. So I'm going to clean, and I've been just using my medium brush, guys. Really, at this point, you won't need your large brush. So medium is a good one to just use from here on out. Unless you want to, you're welcome to use anything that's comfortable, but I'm just sticking with my medium. Cleaning it off because I'm gonna mix pink. And just making sure I've got some fresh white. So find some white that has no other colors in it. Super important. We want a really nice true pink. So don't pick up other colors. It's just mostly white and then a nice little dot of red. So I like this shade here. That's probably where I want to be. And hold this up here. And I'm going to make almost like a square. Okay, so right here, I'm just gonna make a little square, and then I'm gonna fill it in, and then I'm going to break that square up. So you can start with a square, and then you kind of wanna round it out. Just like that. And I like my cow's nose to be big, so I can even make it just a little bit bigger, like this. So did you see how small I started? And then I worked it outward, so it's like, now it's like a bar of soap. It's pretty big. but I like the way that that looks. It's almost like a fish lens close-up of a cow's muzzle, which is silly and adorable. So that's what you really want. So make it nice and big. It's not round. It's not perfectly square. It's just that nice, soft muzzle shape. Clean your brush really good before you make pink so that you don't get any blues and greens. So good job. We've got our pink on there. So I want you to now, I want you to clean your medium brush because we're just going to add a little bit of white around the muzzle. What we're doing is we're letting the pink dry, and we're going to add a little bit of white. So watch how I do this. That butterfly around the pink. So it's just very soft. Don't overdo this because then it'll draw a lot of attention to it. So it's just kind of giving the muzzle a little bit of width. Okay, so that's it. And I'm just going to add a little bit in there. If it's really transparent looking, just let it dry and then you can go back and give it a second coat. And while I'm doing that white, I'm just going to go back up to my eyes, give it another nice coat of white around so that the eyes are really bright and they really pop. And then you can touch up as needed. So this looks very sharp here. It's almost too blocky on mine. So I'm going to break that up a little by taking my white and I'm just going to break up that very blockiness. I want it to look, this is not a Minecraft game, right, where everything's square. We want it to be organic and natural. So I'm just going in, softening up any blocky areas on the muzzle.
We turn our air off and all we're doing is
All right, so I've got that white all covered up there. So this is important and I hope you can see it, but if you look really closely on this side of the cow's face where the shadow is, it's just a very light yellow, and that's just gonna make it look like it's got more depth, so it's not so blinding white. So to create that, you'll just take a little tiny dot of yellow, a little bit of white. You could even add, if you want, be very careful, you can add a tiny dot of that pink just to give it almost like a glow. And then you can go, you're not going to be able to see this unfortunately on a Zoom class because it's so subtle, but you'll be able to see it. A very nice light yellow just on the dark side, not over here, just on that dark side. But it really just gives that white something that breaks it up so it's not just a giant block of white. And then what I'm doing now too is just like you were trying to replicate fur over here, you can start to do that with that yellow and just sort of subtly make it look like it's fur and not hard, sharp lines. And then if you want to do it on the other side, you would just use pure white. Just pure white. And if you make a mistake, like I just went too far with mine, sometimes what I do is I'll just finger paint and I'll just touch it up. So I'm just adding a little blue with my finger. It's like concealer. When you put on concealer makeup, you can just use your finger and it's gone. Cool. So next thing we're gonna do, let's touch that pink nose and make sure that it's dry. Okay. If it's still very wet, give yourself another minute or two, but we're gonna go ahead and paint in the nostrils. So the nostrils are just a very dark red. So what I would recommend is you can wipe your brush off or clean it in your water jar. I'm just gonna wipe it off and then I'm gonna make a dark red. So dark red is a little bit of red, a little bit of black. Red and black, and you should get a nice maroon. Perfect, I like that right there, like a red wine. And we're gonna make these little cute nostrils. So kind of decide where they're gonna live. Kind of in the middle of the nose here, and then right here you're just gonna make one. I like to press my brush. Hope you can see that, press and then kind of lift off. So press, then lift off. If you have a small brush, you can use that. I'm just using the medium. I'm comfortable with it because I don't want it to look too sharp. Like you've got this very loose style painting and then suddenly you've got like really defined nostrils. You kind of want them to be a little wonky like the rest of it. So I've got those two. Then here's a cool way to use this dark red as shadow. Just wipe off excess. So see, I've wiped it off with my paper towel. Then I can just go in and just very lightly in the center of the nostrils there, just kind of add a little dark red. And then if you want, you can like wet your finger. If it's too dark or too scratchy, you can kind of wet your finger and then you can blend it like this. Tiny, tiny bit of this dark red. I didn't use a lot. If you went too crazy and you used too much there, just take some light pink and go right over it. But you should have something like this. I'll hold it up for a minute or so so you can see it. If you're brave, you can also, this is our shadow, right? This side. So I could, if I want to, kind of add a little more definition on that left side there, where the darks are, just a little. And maybe a little under here. We are almost done. We've got just a couple more steps, which will be the grass and the pupils. Or you can leave your cowl like this. It is 2020, I mean, why not? All right, excellent. I'll hold the nose up closer so you can see it. All right, you guys ready? Okay, here we go. The last couple of steps that we're gonna do are the grasses. So let's take a look at this. So the grass is kind of crazy. It's almost like, I think of it as like a casserole of whatever's left in your fridge, right? Look at all the colors. There's reds, there's blues, there's teal, yellow. I mean, you basically can use whatever you want. The only thing I would just be cautious of is there really isn't like variation in the thickness of everything. So see, they're all like the same thickness. And look at the direction. I mean, this cow has half of this in its mouth and the rest is just hanging out. So when you're creating your grass, kind of just imagine that it's really coming out of the cow's mouth. And look how far it goes. It goes to his shoulder blade. It comes right off of the canvas, off to the left. So there's quite a bit in there. It's almost like this cow got caught eating something it shouldn't. Like, that's what I feel like. So it's cute and it's very dramatic. So let's get dramatic with it and do a lot of that. I'm gonna start off clean brush and medium brush. So I'm gonna maybe do some green to start just to keep it somewhat real. So I'm using yellow, a little bit of white, a little blue, but again, whatever you've got left, it'll work. I'll start off with this light and then come right up underneath that nose and just make 3 or 4 little strands of this grass like this, and add water to your paint. You'll feel the difference of watering it down just a little bit. Then when I'm done with this color, now I'm like, I'm gonna use blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some blue, mix it in with my color I just used, and look at that beautiful, it's like a teal, it's like, you know, a very almost turquoise. I like it. I'm gonna add a little bit of that off to the sides. And depending on how you hold your brush, you'll get different brush strokes too. You'll have thick to thin lines. You want a lot of variation. And I'm moving quickly. You don't have to paint as fast as I do, but I'm just gonna move through these colors here. Then I see some burgundy. So maybe I'll clean my brush so that I don't mix up muddy colors. And I'm gonna pick up some of that burgundy that I used for the nostrils. And I'm just gonna add maybe a little blue to that. Ooh, that's very red. I don't know if I like it. I might darken it up. It's okay. This is this cow's having a salad right now. A little bit of red. And then if you want to make brown, you can take your red and mix it with green, and that'll get you some nice brown tones, even some black. So again, like I said, this is just like everything you've got left over. That's the grasses. Repurposing. And again, like I said, I really want these to hang off to the, you know, off the canvas a little bit. So I'm not afraid to really make these big. So silly. I love it. It looks really crazy. I'll show it to you up close there. So you can see all the color variations: greens, blues, red, brown. If you want to give it some real contrast, add a little white to a couple of them. I'll try that now. Just got my dark red and add a little white. See what that does. All right, so at 8:30, I'm gonna show you how to do the pupils and then we'll be done. So I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to work on your grasses and make sure that you're cleaning your brush in between colors if they're very different in contrast, and then, you know, add water to your paint too. This paint's been sitting out for 2 hours now, so you're gonna feel the difference as opposed to when you first started painting, when it wasn't drying out yet, all right? Pupils, here we go. So I'm just going to use black, and I feel like you can do this with your finger. You're already deep in it, so why not get a little paint on yourself. I'll just pick up a little dot of black with whatever, I'm using my middle finger, but whatever you're comfortable with. And you're just gonna find dead center, like not looking off to the side or anything. So dead center, you just put a little dot there, and then you make it bigger by spreading it out like this. And you'll do the same on the other side. Make it nice and even. You want them to be about the same size, hopefully. And then this isn't on the cow painting, but I kind of like doing this if you want to, optional, but you can take the wrong side of your medium brush, pick up a little scoop of white, and then you can do like a little sparkle. If you want, see? Optional, it's not on the original, but I like eyes that are glassy. I just love that, like in animation or cartoons or anything like that. I just love that little sparkle. And that's it. Sign your artwork. It's important you take full responsibility of your art and be proud of it. Put it somewhere in your house tonight where you could see it. Prop it up against a table or against your countertops or anything so that you can see it tomorrow morning, and I promise you it's going to make you smile.
That'd be great. And also, everybody, Nancy chatted us Vanessa's Venmo, so if you want to tip her,
Thank you.
that.
Thank you guys. And my Venmo address is actually my name on my Zoom, so it's at Vanessa -Lavelle, and then if it asks you for my last four of my phone number, it's 2203.